Well, thank you so much, Kari. I'm going to do the countdown. For me, when I'm editing, it's just easier to see where the countdown starts. I have your bio from LinkedIn, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it, not the whole part of it. I want to make sure that I send people to you. So at the end, I'm going to ask you where's the best place that people could find you, and then I'll let you talk about that. And other than that, we'll just kind of have a conversation. It'll be fun.
It sounds great.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And the secret is that's really everyone. Everyone matters. And today I am so honored to be joined by my friend and fellow North Dakotan, Kari Block, who has an amazing bio and who I've known for many years, but I want you to get to know Kari a little bit more. So before I start, Kari, I'm just going to say Kari is an entrepreneur. You were probably raised to be an entrepreneur, I bet. She is now the CEO and founder of an organization called EarthKind, and she's going to tell us more about that. That was developed because of necessity, Kari. On a farm, you needed to get rid of pests, but you didn't want to kill them. So EarthKind was born, and she'll tell us a little bit more about that. But Kari also has lots of awards. She's been entrepreneurial winning women from Ernst & Young, SBA's highest honor in North Dakota, Small Business Person of the Year. A lot of other, I'm not downplaying your bio, but I want to talk about your book too, Kari, a brand new author of a book called Gathering Around the Table, a story of purpose-driven change through business. So with all of that, Kari, thank you so much for being with me today.
I am so happy to be here with you. I've been a fan of yours, Jody, for, oh my gosh, since I started this business way back on the farm, and I hardly knew anybody, and I'd see business people out in the community and how you were masterminding and everything. And it really resonated with me. So it's so good to be here with you today, that you've read my book, I've read your book, and so I'm happy to share. So let's get started. I do come from a family of entrepreneurs, and basically, we've been pioneers, because my grandparents immigrated here, and then they were farmers. And really, to make a living like that, there had to be some kind of entrepreneurial aspect to all of it to make it happen. And my dad, he was an entrepreneur, and pretty successful one in North Dakota. And many people might have heard of Super Pumper. And so he started that company. It was a convenience store chain. But when I was growing up with him as a kid, I knew him as an entomologist. So he was a bug guy. And he worked for some pretty big, a bug guy. And he worked for some pretty big companies out there. So we grew up all over the US. We really didn't come back to North Dakota until the death of my mother. And I was getting into my teenage years. So that, all of those things really formed me. So now he was an entrepreneur, was a bug guy. Now I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm like really trying to make a solution out there for people that don't want to have to kill things or don't want to have to use a poison.
Yeah, well, and like I said, that was out of necessity. And I know I've read your book, so it's not fair to I'm asking you questions that I already know the answer to. Because, by the way, your book is amazing. It's basically a biography at the beginning, and then it goes into life lessons and just so many business lessons. And so there are parts of your story that are fascinating to me. And I think I told you this before, the way it's written just weaves everything in so well from the beginning. You learn things about yourself in hindsight that lead you right to where you are right now today. And I just think it's brilliantly woven together, Kari. And some of that is growing up on the farm, growing up as you did, and you must have had a heart to not want to kill things. Does that all come together?
Yeah, absolutely. From the time I was just a really young little girl, we lived in New Jersey when I was about 5 years old. And I asked my dad simply, where is away? When you throw things away, I kind of wanted to know. And
Where is
so he took me
away?
out to, yeah, took me out to Kills Dump in Staten Island, New Jersey, the largest dumping ground in the world. We're in the country at that time. We drove and drove, and it was like miles of garbage, mounds of garbage. And there was people living there. And I was like, people really live like this, Dad? And he says, oh, don't knock it. These people probably make more money than a lot of our neighbors do. And then there was bugs out there. There was, cockroaches and all kinds of things. I'm like, it just felt inhumane. And I asked him where this stuff is going to go. And he goes, it really doesn't go anywhere. And then the plastics, and he was a scientist. So I was like, well, what about these plastics? So at that point, it really made this impact. I started mixing my own stuff because I didn't want to buy bottles and throw them away. And so because of that, I developed chemical sensitivities because I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't supervised. So I just started mixing stuff, trying to use it as a shampoo, or when if I was tasked with cleaning my room, I was, in my fantasy world being this, formulator to save plastic bottles from the planet. And so then I got really sensitive. I couldn't use bubble bath, and I couldn't use normal shampoos, and everything was really bothering me. So I just saw things a little bit differently growing up, and I think that gave me a heart for what was really happening and what products were really doing to the planet. Because I looked at it, I saw it with my own eyes as a little kid. So, yeah. and that was part of writing the book too. And my business was, you have to somehow open your heart, right, to a kind of earth. And the only way that happens is usually through a trauma, or you see something in a different way. And, none of us know until we know different, right? Mm-hmm. But then at the same time too, it's important to lift your spirit to a higher place too, which is really what the business has been about for me on a personal mission. It's just helping me to grow and mature and make an impact too.
Has it always been that heart-led, spirit-led for you?
I don't know. Some people would say I'm crazy, yeah, but it certainly is, a passion. My grandparents were dairy farmers, and it wasn't so popular. It really wasn't so popular with them because I was just asking questions, and why are we doing this, and why are we eating this, and I just had a whole different ethos, and I was just constantly discovering and wanting to know every detail about things a normal 5-year-old wouldn't. So my sister would get ice cream, and my grandma would say, you can't have ice cream. It's a dairy product. You said you don't want to eat dairy products.
Oh, wow. So is this lady grandma that you're talking about?
No, this is a different grandma.
Okay.
So lady grandma was my dad's mother, and she definitely, gave in to me and my weird, crazy questions, and gave me the space to figure some of those things out. But it was not the easiest. I wasn't the easiest kid to have in the family, kind of like a fly in the ointment. But I just figured, somebody has to ask these questions. Somebody has to care. Yeah. And I saw the people around me, and nobody really cared about these things. And I'm like, animals should be treated humanely. Insects should be treated humanely, because I was looking at their purpose in the ecosystem, and I was just looking at them very, very differently. And so I was always doing that as a kid, and other kids knew it too. And science class, I refused to dissect something, and so I still graduated. But
you still graduated. Isn't that funny? Because looking back on the way education was and the way the world was back then, you just did what people told you to do. I mean, at least that's the way I was raised. You and I are the same age. So we were raised, in a similar time, but I didn't know I could ask that many questions. I, for some reason, made a decision early on in my life that it wasn't okay for me to ask questions. But it sounds like for you, your heart was leading you in a direction that you couldn't deny.
Yeah, absolutely. There was this whole thing about, being authentic, which was really important to me as a kid, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not the smartest because I was always way behind in school. I was like the last to be chosen in for sports teams, because I wasn't really athletic and I wasn't the smartest in the class. And I always thought, at least I can be who I am and take it or leave it. And our family moved around a lot too. So it wasn't like there was friends around and, influences that just pulled me into this norm way of being. So I got a chance, and it's, that's the wonderful thing about such a turbulent childhood. Now looking back, where I went to a different school every year of my life except high school. But I had a chance to live as a white person with Black people. And I get a chance to be, a white person living out like in Yakima with Native Americans and Mexicans. And I saw the beauty, in all of them, and their culture. Those are the things that I really, gravitated to. And even today in my company, in our manufacturing plant, the diversity is just, it's amazing. I can't even tell you how many languages we have. But they notice it too. They love it because everybody thinks differently, and they'll say things and they'll go, oh, I never thought of it that way. So we have a lot of fun time together and sharing each other's foods, sharing each other's, just, there's so many things that we can learn through diversity. So
great.
yeah.
So let's go back to how EarthKind came to be. Would you tell us a little bit more about how your company was born?
Yeah. So I was out on the farm, and we had mice getting into our tractors and trucks and campers, and it was really horrific. There wasn't really a sensible way that would keep them out, because right back then you could use a bait or a trap or something, the mice would come in, but they do damage oftentimes before they left. And they would put a nest in there, and it was really messy and then stinky. And you couldn't really plug in an ultrasonic thing because there's no plugins there, and sprays, none of that really works. So I was like, what the heck am I going to do to keep these mice out of the truck cabs? And a lot of the farm wives were having to clean up and do all of that. And it's so annoying. You're like, you work so hard as a farmer, so hard to make a buck at the end of it, right? And then this wonderful piece of equipment that does everything for you is just violated. And I was like, I think there could be a ritual here where people are really taking care, because they take care of their equipment and they take them in and they do all this stuff. I'm like, I need to invent something that will really pay honor, right, to that workhorse of yours, but at the same time work for you to keep the mice out. So it turned out to be, a sensation. We're 15 years since this invention was registered by EPA. Next, I think it's Monday the 26th. So we're going to have stuff all across the country for our birthday. Tractor Supply will do a 15% off on a birthday bundle. So we're going to have a big old party about this. But it was, for us to come out with a product that was a repellent was pretty new and novel right back then. And so getting it EPA registered was really, I won't go into the longest story. It was a very, very big thing, but we got it done, and then we got it out on the market. And so here we come out with this product. It was like, I don't know, 12, 14 bucks, something like that. And people would go, I'm just going to spend my $250 and get my poison because I know it's always going to work. I might have a little mess. But I tell you, the farm wives loved it because they're like, this is an easy piece of this is like, and then the parts counter guys who sold it at John Deere and, the implement dealers, they would tell the guys, you get this and trust me, your marriage is good. Because there was no more fighting and expensive, because it's such a mess too when you have to clean it up and it causes just it's like you fight. It's just so annoying.
So
how started with farmers and now it's
yes, okay, and how? What is it? What does it do? How did you come up with it? How did you discover it?
So this product, I need to get a sample here. I'll get a sample here before we're over and I'll show it. So what this product is, basically, it's like a little sachet and you place it in your tractor cab and it smells amazing. It's made with balsam fir oil, which is a botanical repellent. And I'll explain how that works in a minute. And corn cobs, which, are grown on farms, and we grew corn. So it's like, why not? And they're put into this little pack and blended almost like a potpourri, right? And then you set it in and it emits this repellent fragrance that smells good. And then mice stay out for 3 months or more.
Magic.
And so that's how it works. So what makes the repellent work is balsam fir trees make a natural repellent to keep mice from off their trees, because monarch butterflies live in those trees in the summer and the winter, and mice is one of the only predators that they have. So they just make this repellent to keep them off, which is kind of cool. And I noticed that simply by walking through the mountains. I'm like, why is this tree, and I've been an avid hiker and mountain hiker, and like, why does this tree have bark and this tree doesn't? I started asking questions and they said, it's the rodents. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. So all those years later, and I'm on the farm, I was like, just on a whim, hey, maybe it's in the bark. Maybe there's something there. So I started testing things, and I tested mint too, because mint was, like a wives' tale. You throw mint and you don't have the mice. And we grew mint, but it didn't work. It worked for a short period of time, like 10 days or 2 weeks. But, with the equipment, we were needing heavy duty, professional grade. That sucker better last for 3 months.
Wow. So it was trial and error at the beginning. And did you just make it in your house by yourself? How did you start?
Yes. There was lots of little experiments. I was like back to that 5-year-old girl again, little vials of things and shaking things up, and very, very much a fail fast, fail cheap kind of a method. And I tested wild rose oil. And I thought, I got a headache from it. And that actually worked as well. But my guys aren't going to like the smell of wild rose. Plus, it gives me a headache. That'll probably give workers a headache if this ever turns into a business. And it's very expensive too. Rose oil is very, very expensive. And then I tested several trees, and then I tested the mints, and you really found out what works. And then from there, there's, a whole process that you have to go through with, the science side of things to prove out and to get the patent and, to get it on the market.
Wow. So how long did it take from the time you said, this is it, I'm going to make these sachets, I'm going to do this, till you had a patent and it was actually a viable business?
It was about 8 years total. Today with my experience, I could probably do it in 4. So not really bad for somebody not knowing and starting out. And I pretty much had to sell produce. I had to apply for grants. I had to do a lot of the research myself to get it off the ground back then. And believe, I saw something nobody else did. And now today, it's so funny. It's like, I just got off this call with one of our agencies, and they're going, oh, well, there's 2 options, really viable. There's you and there's P&G. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who would have thought of that, right? As a as a farm person. So it's just the power of an idea when you have something and people don't often believe it, and I didn't either, because I had neighbors that were like, that is so stupid, Kari. I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but it really is dumb because you can buy this poison for $2.50. And I was like, I kept going in the back of my head, what's the right thing to do? And and then I had a near-death experience. I was selling organic produce at a farmer's market, and a 72-year-old lady on a touring bike with a sidecar ran me over and got to the hospital. My artery broke, and I died for 3 minutes. And you lay there on your back, and it was like things really crystallized. This is the way to say it. And I didn't think I was, wasting my time before, but I was like, you are freaking wasting your time on planet Earth, Kari. You got a chance here to really make an impact. And I thought, okay, people may never know who I am, and it doesn't even matter to me, but I'm like, I have a chance here to really change something for good. And so then I didn't have any fear after that point. I'm like, what's the worst that could do? You could die. It wasn't like money, because I'd been broke a lot of my life. And so it's just, people often underestimate the power that really lies within ourselves. And just the power of belief. And in my book, I, talk about will, and then belief, and then your passion, right? And you can get so much done, even by starting with just nothing, but this idea, the seed of an idea. And then it's finding the right people that share that same, vision, that want to help you.
Well, and you have to be the impetus for that, because like you said, you're ahead. Nobody knows what you're talking about. The people who love you and care about you and are around you are telling you you're crazy, and they can buy it for $2.50. Why would they spend, however much it's going to cost to keep pests from dying, when really we're thinking we want to kill them? So all of that, you had to trust something. I mean, that's the definition of faith, right? You had to trust something you couldn't see the result of. And what kept you going? Besides the fact that you almost died, I know that was oh, by the way, which we probably shouldn't discount. But was it that had you say, this is really something that I need to do? Or was it something else?
Well, it's funny what kept me going, because there was many times my faith was shaken over the years. And it changed as time went on and the business size grew, because it's like a self-development course. I tell you what, starting a business, you learn so much about yourself and about people around you. And in the early years, I'd get these messages or notes from people, and I kid you not, they'd come in the mail like the day after. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. I don't have the education. I don't have the money. I don't have the skill and the experience, and I'm not even in the industry. There was every reason in the world why I should give up, and I talked myself into it. And then I'd get this note, and it was always this divine spark then that happened, and it would open my heart again. And I would open my heart to, okay, keep seeing with your heart. It's just gonna, you got to keep going and keep going. And so those early years were things like that. And then as time went on, it became more about the market shifts, right? And I'd see the numbers, right? This is the poison in people's homes, right? And then now I'm like, oh my God, it's reduced 10% since our products came out on the market, and other companies are getting into it. And so it's not about the competition. To me, it's about being neighbors, right? How can we all kind of move this? And so those kind of things really inspire me, where, some of my team members might go, oh my gosh, you have P&G in here, you're screwed, right? And I'm like, you know what? And I can help them think differently about it and see the amazing opportunity that creates. And the same thing with the faith now, because now with my people, my coworkers through COVID, through all of this, I've been, a really good leader, and I'm really proud of that, because I've kind of helped them see and understand that, know in their hearts, we're going to be okay. No matter what happens, we are going to be okay. And I never let that fear really creep in. And I think it took a lot of time and experience to recognize how fear can creep into people and how to really manage that and move it out of the way. But then that inspires me too, whenever it gets hard, and I can see the hours, I can see the impact on my people. And I was at a industry event last November. It was an EY Strategic Growth Forum. It's an invite only, nation's top 1% of the CEOs. And they did a survey. Now, these are successful entrepreneurs and companies. And 95% of the CEOs said, we have never worked harder in our life. We're exhausted to the core. Exhausted to the core. And I was like, that's me. I am so tired. We are all exhausted, right? But we've been holding the organizations up, doing the work because other people couldn't, right? And freezes happened, and so that that was like eye-opening too, and realizing, hey, we need to, as leaders, we need self-care. And especially when you're taking care of people and through crisis, and that's something we encourage, and I'm glad my employees encourage that too. They're like, you look a little tired, Kari.
But I think
play with your dog.
You have set that up though. I mean, the culture of your organization, which by the way, we can probably backtrack a little bit and get from North Dakota to North Carolina. So when you started EarthKind as a company, it started in North Dakota, right?
Yeah, it started in North Dakota out on my farm. We started actually, it was called Crane Creek Gardens, because we lived on Crane Creek. And then I incorporated it as EarthKind after my near-death accident, and went, this is really this mission and the purpose, and I'm going to really grow this thing. And then it just became, as the company grew, to do everything we needed to do, we had to leave the state. So I kept our offices there, moved our manufacturing down to North Carolina about a little over 5 years ago. We're in race car country right here. We're in Mooresville, which is the home to NASCAR. Wow. So there's a really good, and a lot of farming around us too. So North Dakota and North Carolina were very, very similar ethos. And you got a working people. We have a lot of farming, manufacturing. There's a lot more manufacturing down here than in North Dakota. Good family values. And it was just everything that we needed to keep our culture intact. So we did it without really a bump in anything, which is pretty rare moving a company, but it's been a great fit for us.
So how many employees do you have now?
So we have 42 in our plant. And we have external, we have about, that many, again, external that are contractors and, people helping us in other states.
Wow. So what is tell me about what EarthKind does. Is it still just the sachets? Is there more to it now? What does EarthKind do?
We have, so what we do is we look at the most toxic pesticides in the category that would have the most impact, a negative impact on environmental health or childhood health. And we bring those products, commercialize those products in. So we started with rodents, and now we have the most effective moth repellent in the world now. We were just told by the European Union, which is pretty cool. And that's a problem nobody's really been able to really get a tackle on. And we've got cockroaches too. which we have a product that does German, Asian, and American cockroaches, and it's highly, highly effective, like amazing. And into the 80 to 90% of the time, you just, it's a natural plant oils, you put it down and they go away. So we're pretty happy about that. That's been out a couple of years and it's really taken off. And our next bestseller is a spider repellent, and it is just surprising everybody and doing really well on the market. But the thing of it is one of the things with our products is they smell good and they work, right? They keep pests out of certain areas. You can use them where you wouldn't want to use a spray or anything like that. So, but with the spider repellent too, it's like people don't have to clean up spider webs anymore, and they love that.
Wow.
So
where
saves
do you
so much time and money.
Yeah. Where do you sell mostly? I mean, any retail place, or do you sell online, or where can you get it?
Yeah, we sell our products. You can go on our website, earthkind.com. You can also get them on Amazon. You can get them on, hey, Jim, would you grab me a box of Fresh Cab from my office? Thank you. My husband's home today. So you can get them in Tractor Supply stores. You can get them in Target stores. You can get them in Lowe's stores, Ace Hardware, Grove Collaborative.
So when
Depot,
so the business part of this is so fascinating to me, because the heart that had you build this one little sachet of that smelled good, that kept the rodents out of your own home, tractor, is one thing. But the fact that you became the CEO of this 42-person organization that also has 42 external people, that's a whole different thing. How did you do that?
Oh my God. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a whole different thing. Probably the best way to say I do that is, listening and thinking that I'm not good at it, right? Because I really want to be good at it. And I feel like there really wasn't anybody at the time that could really lead this forward because of, what I had on my heart and the vision that I have. Really, it isn't anything you can just sell to a poison company and that they would know how to do. So selling out was really never my goal of let's build it and sell it and get all this money, because one of the things that really helps to drive me and push me on is I see these entrepreneurs like myself, right? And these big companies get bigger because they'll buy a company, right? And then the people that sell it are like, yeah, I got all this money, I sold my company. And 90% of the time they do everything they can to get that company back, because their employees, then everything they built changes. And then it makes it harder for the next entrepreneur coming in the market. And I'm like, the system is just broken. So it just made me think about how I grow the company and the capital runways and, what that's really going to look like. And I think business nowadays too, with the smart, amazing kids we have nowadays, they do their research and they question things and they're wicked smart. I just tell my employees, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know why I even do this. You guys are like so much smarter, right? And but I think it's more guiding all of that so that our youth can, because they are passionate about the environment and they are passionate about community, right? And they want sustainability, but they still want a really good deal. So that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, not as a how-to, but really as a story that took them through how to make a decision from a place of your values, because that's not taught in college. No. It's not something your parents can teach you. You can only learn this from other entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are really willing to help. I've met some of the top, entrepreneurs and billionaires, and I'm like, does people call you for help? And they're like, almost never, because they think I'm too busy and they think this. And so I really encourage entrepreneurs just to ask. Just
You know
to
what?
ask.
That is so brilliant. And nobody can do this. I love that you said nobody can do this like you can, because nobody has the heart you have for the way you're actually running the business of your business. And what I heard that you maybe didn't say, but what I heard is the people who are doing the putting the product together and doing the work of your organization probably know how to do that really well. And so if you get the right people in place and trust that you will train them how to do the job, or somebody who does it will train them, your job as the visionary is to keep the vision. And you do that so well in my observation.
Yeah, it's Brian Chadsky, founder of Airbnb. I was at a conference with him once, and he came over and we talked, and I helped him make a connection with a guy in Fargo that I met at a startup, and he actually like bought the business. It was so cool, but just an awesome guy. And he told me, he said, the only thing you ever need to do, Kari, this is my advice to you, is just share your vision. If that's your full-time job, everything else will evolve around you. And I remember, I was in Africa when I saw him, and we were on this mission, and there was entrepreneurs from all over the world. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's easy for you to say, because I'm reading in the newspaper on the way home, he gets capital from Blackstone. And I'm like, well, and it's still, I keep thinking of it, and I still every day say, it's like exercising, right? You need to do this, it's good for you. And it really is a challenge to stay visionary and to keep, because it's a flame that keeps your people going, right? And it gets them through the hard times of what they see in front of them isn't necessarily what you see coming.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's hard, and it's hard for entrepreneurs to communicate like that. And in the beginning, nobody sees it. So how can they believe you? So they really can't get the money. And we entrepreneurs, we have to help each other for sure.
What I heard in all of that story, you are so funny about saying, and then this, and then I had a near-death experience, and then I met the guy at Airbnb, and it's just kind of like happenstance. And I love that about you, because you are so humble, and the fact that you are sharing your heart allows other people to run their businesses that way too. The connection that I feel from you and always have felt from you is something that you don't always see on the high level of business, because sometimes I think people believe they have to be something other than what would maybe their heart would call them to be, because you can't be heart-led in business. How does that work? You can't do that. And you're a shining example of how, yes, you can.
It's important that we give people permission to be themselves, and their authentic selves, because, it's like, yeah, we were all made differently. So why not be that? And, I did that for all those years growing up, and there's people that don't like me, obviously, and, in business, and I've, said things, you can read about it in my book, to Walmart or to other retailers, and say no, and it's so funny because I stuck to it. And now look who's beating on your door and throwing money at you, going, come on, that we didn't see it, we see it now. And I can hone my skills too at making decisions of who you're going to do business with and who you're going to, how things are going to happen, because things can be a train wreck. Yeah. But when you do business from a place of values, and you get to know the people like that on your teams like that, oh my God, it's unstoppable. It's really unstoppable. And then you get the talent is just, it comes to a whole new level. Yeah. When you can bring that out in people. And then they see it if you did it, and they're like, wow, I can do it.
Yeah, that's what I loved so much about your book. I loved I sound like a fangirl. I kind of am, but I loved everything about your book. But when I got to the end, chapter 12 on, chapter 12 talks about integrity. And then you start talking about conscious capitalism. And I have so many things highlighted and underlined. And, there's just things that spoke to my heart, because being conscious, being aware, being, well, we're talking about authentic. This podcast is called Circle Up and Get Real, but you share your fears, you share your victories, you share what you just said about the people who were the ones making fun of you are now the ones saying, well, I'd like to, come back. And I don't know if they're apologizing to you or not, but I love even chapter 14, from farm wife to leadership role model. What I love about what you're doing now, as you're encouraging other young women to step into the roles that you've found yourself in, can you talk a little bit more about who you've been meeting and how you've been doing that with Conscious Capitalism as kind of a platform?
Sure. It's that was like that little small voice inside me, right? And it was, conscious of the networks that we associate ourselves with. So I first come to know them because they'd been out there a while and I didn't see them. And I saw this, conscious capitalism event. And so I went to it, and out the window in the morning, there was Qigong, and there was like, organic food over here, and there's yoga over here. And there was like this ultra marathon best guy in the world. And then there's the CEO of Panera and, the founder of Whole Foods. It was, and this was in Austin, Texas. And I'm like, well, this is kind of my kind of conference, because it was just all over the place and everyone was accepted. And the whole theme was, how can we uplift humanity through business? So the speakers were having ideas about this, like, it goes around using business as a force for good, but there's it's a different approach. You have to take this stakeholder approach. And it's something I always did since the beginning of times, because if I'm going to make a product or get in a business deal, I have my checklist. Okay, does this support the insect kingdom that supports us? That's one of our stakeholders, right? Is this gonna, because we'd all be dead if it wasn't for the pollinators. We'd be dead in like a month or two. Okay, and then I say, is this, with our vendors and our suppliers, is this gonna be aligned with them and their growth, right? Or is this somebody so then my people I know today, they don't put the screws, give me cheaper. And that held us through COVID, because we didn't get price increases. We work with them years ahead. Employees too. We're like, okay, is this going to uplift employees? And retailers, we chose our retailers based on those that had that believed in doing business in an EarthKind way. So that helped us not have a lot of false starts or false, things that didn't work out, because we always kept it as aligned as we could with the values. And then even in the marketing and the way it's like I sign, here my husband brought me a box, but here it is right here. Yeah. And I say, I wish to personally thank you for purchasing this product. In doing so, you support American farmers, less advantaged communities, and our precious environment. So we hire handy, capable people in our plant for like 20% of our assembly. And talk about diversity, the ideas that come from them. It is like next level genius. Wow. We have an autistic guy, never says a word. Nobody's ever heard this guy talk. And he was at our last meeting, our quarterly town hall. We all come together. We have a big party every quarter, and get some learning and, have some fun. And I asked the question, and we had big whiteboards and stickies and everything. And I said, okay, if you could do one thing and just dare with everything in you to be really, really great at, what would it be? it was all around our values and stuff. And this guy comes up and he said, we need to become a household name. That's what I'm going to show up every day for.
Wow.
He goes, let's dare to do it. And everybody, I just got the chills telling this. Everybody, like, you know, there's about 70 of us there. And we're like, oh my gosh, right? How it is just like how powerful. And so that, yeah, just the things that come out of those, we go back after we do those, and that informs, you know, how we're going to go, because other people, we're giving them permission to have this vision and have a big vision, right? And then, so it's just, yeah, it's so much fun to be where I'm at today. This is what the pouches look like too.
Oh, nice.
So
they're really cute.
And it was like, yeah, of course, you know, I come from working at a cosmetic counter. So, oh, like if you're going to do pest control, it might as well be, you know, cute and pretty and smell good too. And, oh, it has to be good for farmers too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the farmers like the smell.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you can even use this in a deer blind.
Really?
And it, you know, because it's natural, so the deer don't get offended by it. So we have quite a few, archery hunters that put it up in their blinds, so they don't have to come back to a mouse mess. And
oh, that's interesting. Did you plan that, or is that just like a happy accident?
It was a happy accident. This whole thing was planned for farmers at the beginning. I'm like, hey, 2% of the nation is farmers. And I added it up on a calculator, you know, big calculators back then. And I'm like, well, I'm probably going to be a millionaire if all these farmers, because I can save them all this money. And I, you know, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then, you know, I realized there's pests in the distribution systems, and there's pests in the food service, and there's pests all over the place. And so it's just a real opportunity, and collaborations too with, you know, companies that want to get greener.
Yeah.
We offer, you know, kind of an easy way for them to dip their toe in it.
So what's next for EarthKind? What's next for Kari Block?
So what's next is I'm working really hard building the team so I can get out and sponsor roundtables, you know, all over the country. You know, talk about my book. My book was called Gathering Around the Table for Purpose-Driven Change Through Business. And of course, it wasn't like you're watching most company CEOs write a book and they put their company name on there and stuff. And I really wanted it to be, you know, bigger than that. But yeah, I'd like to go around and speak at events and help, you know, help other entrepreneurs, and work in the schools too, help kids and help support those curriculums, work with the entomologists. And it's been just this last year, it's been amazing how, you know, how all of that has started to come full circle through COVID, with just people recognizing and seeing nature and going, oh my gosh, we need to do something here. And it really wasn't thought about before. And so our employees felt pretty strong about helping out, you know, using our brand in that way to help kids.
Wow.
And
wow. So I think what I'm hearing in all of that for you is that when you're present, you know, when you're present with yourself, and then you're present with the people who are around you, and you are attracting what you need by who you're being. Then you said, I love the story about the autistic guy, and you said you allow people to be real and be themselves, and then you never know what you're going to see when they are allowed to bring their best selves and live their whole lives to the edges. And I love that your next version of you, I guess, is to do more of that, and to teach in schools and talk and speak. And because Kari, what you're bringing is not a commodity. What you're making is a commodity, or could be, but what you're bringing is not. And so I want to just thank you for allowing me to be a witness to your brilliance and greatness today on this conversation. And I know that there's something in the future for us together. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm very confident that there will be something.
Oh, it's been so much fun to speak with you today. I wish I could be sitting right there next to you.
No, you don't. It's snowy.
But yeah, I know that, but it's close to my kids too.
I know your kids. Well, next time you're here, you have to come here. So again, how can they find you, Kari? If people wanted to find you, maybe for speaking engagements or to find your book, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so a couple ways. LinkedIn is really easy. I'm kind of active on that. And it's just my name, Kari Warberg Block. If you type in EarthKind too, you can, there's a breadcrumb trail there for me. I do have a website too, kariwarbergblock.com. So that has things on there about speaking, that has my blogs. It has some of the other media type things. And I welcome any kind of opportunities or chances to talk or collaborate.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I had a blast chatting, and I look forward to seeing you sometime, either here or there. I don't know, maybe I'll come to North Carolina and see you there. But everybody, please look up Kari, look her up and find her if there's anything that you've heard today that you'd like more information about. And as always, get real. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
It's there. I'll put that up too. I'll stop recording here in just a second. I have to remember how to do that. So stop recording.